Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Baker, and this is Mama Stories. I created Mama Stories after seeing how impactful sharing stories can be in overcoming the challenges of motherhood. I am where I am today because of the stories of so many amazing, strong mamas, and I want to share that with every mom I can. So follow along to laugh, cry, and be empowered. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Have you heard about how we are changing the story for moms? Mama Fund is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing products, services, and education to moms in need. So check us out at mamafund.org. All right, welcome to the show today, Jenelle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Jenelle is?
Yeah, so I am the founder of Living Room Realty, and we are, I think, one of the first real estate companies in the nation to be a B Corp. We have about 130 brokers. We have a property management division. We have an all-female maintenance team. And I built that company in the depth of the recession at the same time as having my second daughter, Siri.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm the mom of two little girls. They're about 17 months apart and best friends. So I'm a mom, I'm a business leader, and I'm currently serving as the president for the local chapter of our entrepreneurs organization. It's a global organization across the world for the support of entrepreneurs, and I'm our current Portland chapter president.
Okay, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You got your hands full.
My hands full, yeah.
All right, so you were a mom of one, almost two when you were starting Living Room Realty?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was pregnant with my second. It actually didn't occur to me that you could have I don't remember having sex. I think a lot of moms will probably remember that. Like after you have a baby, it's just like you are just so out of it. And my first daughter was she hadn't even started on solid food yet. She was just breastfeeding, and kind of, the old wives' tale is that really until you kind of start weaning or the baby starts on food, should be really careful with contraception, but not me. So my ex-husband and I actually spent a summer in Finland visiting his family and getting to her citizenship, and I thought I just had jet lag that I couldn't get over.
Yeah.
I was like, God, I just feel so tired. And by the end of the trip, he was like, oh, I don't want to say anything because you seem really sensitive right now, but you look pregnant. I think you're pregnant.
Wow.
So I had already had plans in place to start Living Room, and it was well underway, and then came home and to have my midwife tell me, yeah, you're 4 months pregnant.
4 months. Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. All right. So how'd you do it? How'd you continue on opening up this company in such a crazy time for real estate?
Yeah.
And being pregnant?
Well, I think it's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, you're so brave. You started this real estate company in the depth of the recession. And honestly, if things had not slowed down a bit, I just don't know how I really would have done it. So there's a lot of, and I try to remember that now. Like I was on a plane this morning that was delayed, and my mantra is like, this is happening for me for a reason. Mm-hmm. There's a reason. And of course, I got a call from my daughter this morning that her friend that was supposed to come over and give her a ride to school didn't show up, and she's in tears. And I was like, I would have missed that call if I'd been on the plane. Had the plane been on time, and it was like, this is more important. This is where I want to be. But it's also, that proverbial plane, the real estate crash. I didn't see it. I really didn't see it coming when I started to think of the idea of Living Room. I just knew I just had such a passion for community building. I was at a real estate company that just didn't feel that aligned with my values anymore. An incredible company. Their owner is still a mentor of mine, but we had started a green campaign that we know green real estate, but we weren't recycling in our offices. So, I stepped up to be like, can I lead a recycling program? Can we talk about what that means to be green inside? And, and it was kind of like starting to find some leadership in those ways, but I was also bringing, my daughter into work. I'm the sole income provider for my family. I'm also I was definitely going to be breastfeeding. That was like a non-negotiable for me. So every 2 hours I had to be breastfeeding and working. So the baby was in the office with me, and there was nowhere I felt really comfortable. And I just started looking around at like all the ways of like, wait, how can this be done to create more of a balance for women? How can this be done that's just more in alignment with my own values as an environmentalist? How can this be done that, the community that we're helping people find homes in, that we're supporting those people in those homes? And that should be like every vendor we have should be local. The coffee that we're serving. I had one of my main clients at the time was Stumptown Coffee, which is a startup here in Portland, Oregon. And they were providing benefits, full benefits for their baristas. And the baristas were finding this really amazing work-life balance. A lot of them were musicians and could go out on tour and come back and have jobs. And I was like, there's just a different way to do business. And I just started getting really fired up about that. So the vision for Living Room was in my head. And like, once you give birth, I think, to a vision like that, you can't go back. And so my daughter, finding out that I was pregnant was just like, well, looks like, it's a good thing. It's perfect timing because I've already, I've got the wheels in motion. I'm going to be able to do this my way. And so it's hard to separate the two of them. Is like, me having young children was really the reason that I had the courage to kind of step out and go out and create my own thing, because I had needs that nobody in the market was fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, and I think breastfeeding is so huge because it's the hardest thing, I would say, as for parents. Like, even if you do it and you do it successfully for 5 years or for a year or however long, or you do it for a week, it's so hard and trying. And to add on work-life balance and the fact that most facilities don't have even just pumping rooms or a place where you could bring your child to help continue that bond. Like, it's just, I'm so glad that you followed your passion to do something like that, because
thank you.
That's so cool for moms to have that space.
Well, the largest segment of the workforce, the largest growing segment of the workforce, are moms with children under the age of 2. So if we as employers don't address the needs of those, of those employees, I mean, I think it comes down to, do we care about our communities? Do we care about the health of our children? There's a lot of studies that, breastfeeding is, if it's possible for the mother and baby, that it produces the best possible health outcomes. Yeah. And so I think as employers, it's like, oh wait, this is, I just don't know that oftentimes like our idea of who the workforce is and who actually the workforce is are aligned.
And go together.
They go together. And so, that's something that, I've advocated for a long time too, is just like trying to build awareness in the communities of entrepreneurs of like, hey, we really got to make sure that we're taking care of women, so we're taking care of our families, taking care of the health of our communities. And it really starts with that. And like, how do we make that? And breastfeeding was funny. Like when I started the business, I had a joke that the UPS man saw my boobs more often than my husband. Because it was just like, I just had to be, signing for packages and answering the phone, and like, it's happening. And so just also realizing like, oh, this is actually something that like our culture's not that familiar with or comfortable with, like seeing women like really in the workplace. Yeah. Like really doing all the mom things.
Did you document that? Is there like, I want to see some like epic pictures of like UPS dropping off some packages boobs and out. You got boobs out feeding a baby. Yeah. I love that. One of the things I wanted to do so bad when I was a mom was breastfeed for a really long time. Yeah. I wanted it to be like this thing where people are like, oh, he's still breastfeeding? That's weird. I don't know. I really wanted to accomplish that. It didn't work out for us as long as I wanted, but my first ever public breastfeeding experience was so awful. I would have never guessed it. I didn't know it was so bad. Yeah. I'm thankful I at least got to experience that. So now when I do see a mom in public breastfeeding, I can be like, wow, that is amazing that you can do that. Yeah. And whether they feel it or not, and they're showing it or not, like, they can still do it in front of all these people and not feel ashamed, because it is it felt very shaming for me. Yeah. Which was weird.
I know, right? It's the most natural thing. There are a lot of things with being a woman and being pregnant. You're like, no one told me this. Yes. And when I had my first daughter, my breasts were so engorged. She couldn't fully get on there because they were just so big and so tight, like trying to like latch onto a basketball. And I had a ton of milk, and she had a Hoover latch, which all the things were there, but it was just that I didn't have enough understanding, and no one in my immediate family or my midwives really caught on to what was going on. So I wound up getting, I had basically my nipples were being torn from my breast tissue. I had huge cracks.
Wow.
I was using, my girlfriend came over and was like, oh my God. And we were using hydrogel wound dressings to put on the nipple and then soaking them with salt water. And, I'm one of the very lucky people that has an issue with breastfeeding, because basically I just kind of lean over her face and milk would like gush out. I mean, there was so much milk coming, but I just couldn't get her to latch. And that's the darkest, definitely darkest, scariest time in my entire life. I was just like, I want to do this, but the pain was
so bad,
excruciating. And so I called up finally a lactation specialist and made an appointment. I remember crying on the way there that was like, please let this be an answer. Please let this woman be able to help me. And like making a deal with the Great Spirit. That like, I will dedicate my life to helping women breastfeed if you'll help me. But she wound up, I realized that the things that I were doing, some of the things that I were doing was actually making it worse. It was just like, that I needed to soften my boob so the baby could latch on.
Yeah.
But then also she recommended I went to a breastfeeding support group, and that, I think anytime we're in community, it's so healthy. It was such a good reminder of like, you think you have problems, and you do have problems, but get together with a group of people. Yeah. You'll get some perspective. You'll get some support. And then, and for me, there was like women that, the babies were starving. Like they weren't getting enough milk, or baby wouldn't take milk, or there were so many other issues. I was like, oh, I got this. Like I'm good. I'm supported. This is a group of women. And I was also just really taken though that whole time by, you never hear. There's nothing, there's no late night commercials for like 1-800 got problems breastfeeding.
Yeah, right. Gosh, that's for sure. I would 100% agree that we oftentimes as moms do the darkest of motherhoods in isolation.
Isolation, yeah.
Like and I think it's because we're afraid that it's us and that we're broken and something's wrong with the way we're doing it, or we're too afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so there's just all these barriers we put up when if we sat in a room with women, we would learn that we're all going through it just at different seasons in different ways. Yeah. That's like really why we started Mama Stories, is because I'd be in these groups with women. I'd be like, man, no one told me we were all feeling this way.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was just me. And now I'm feeling that perspective, like you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard for me. I need to have some more perspective, but also like it's okay that I'm feeling this way. Yeah. And other people feel it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting women supporting other women. It's again and again, I come back to that as a principle in my life, just how bad we need community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Was it easier to breastfeed your second?
Yeah, no problems. It was just like, had that been my first experience, you know. But
then you wouldn't be changing the world for breastfeeding moms.
Yeah, so right.
Maybe that's why you went through it.
Why
you got your delayed plane too.
Yep. I know, right? It's all the things that's happening to me for a reason.
All right, so now you have. We're going to go back in time. So now you have 2 under 2.
Yep.
Your baby comes. You've got living room realty up and running.
Yep.
How do you do it? Do you take time off with your second, or?
No, I didn't really. I had it's funny, the work-life balance, which I think is hilarious. I think it's more like surfing. You're just trying to stay up and ride the wave. But, she came, and there was like a combination between, nannies and dad and late night calls to friends like, oh, help me. But I kept her in the office with me working. So I'll kind of paint the picture. I was moving in furniture at 9 months pregnant. We were like moving in and just like, we better get this done. I wrote a deal and told my assistant, I think I'm gonna go have a baby. She was like, wait, like now? We were at my house. I was like, yep, now. Had a baby a couple hours later. So it was like Siri came and the business was rolling, and And the market had totally crashed. I mean, it was just crashing. Nobody knew where they were at. And so here's me way too busy to be able to even pay attention to what NPR is saying, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the end of real estate, and like, turn that off, turn them up. But I would just ride into work, and I was like, I don't have a choice. I have got to make this work. And so I had the commercial building right on a really busy retail district in Portland on Alberta Street. And we were right next door to PBS had just voted the restaurant next to us as the second best breakfast in America. So people were flying to Portland. People love to go up to Portland. So every tourist was flying to Portland, waiting in line. Portland's famous for our lines to get in to eat anywhere.
I saw them already this morning. Yes, they're everywhere.
So their giant line would be right outside of our office window. And, they had pictures of houses up. We had people coming in, and, the market was crashing, but people were still moving to Portland. And then I think too, when we talk about the market crashing, it really hurt a lot of people with large portfolios. Mm-hmm. But for those of us who didn't have big stock portfolios, it was like we still had the same, the kind of same jobs, the same payment, probably, the same kind of meager amount of savings. We're still buying those first time homes. And so we were busy. I had the biggest year I'd had in my entire career that year. Really? And I think that a lot of that had to do with just my attitude of being open and being positive and getting to it. And also I started attracting a lot of brokers who wanted to come work at Living Room because they saw it was a place that they could make it work. They're like, oh, Jenelle just left, the top firm in Portland. I was one of the highest producing realtors there, and I left, and here they see me. I'm just like a visible symbol of making it work, of juggling it, and a lot of agents that love the business, maybe they didn't have the same amount of money for childcare or some of the other things they did because business was down. If you were a good agent, a lot of good agents didn't do well that year because they were telling people to hold on. They had established clientele, and they're like, this isn't the time to sell. We should ride it out. And so, so they knew it was going to be a friendly place that they could bring kids in and they could make it work, and that there was community. And the attitude in the office was like, we're going to make this work. Where the attitude in a lot of the other brokerages at that time had gotten pretty toxic. Yeah. You started to see how many people were in the business that just didn't really want to be in the business anymore if the money wasn't as easy. Yeah. So it was like I immediately kind of put into place, a framework around recruiting too. It was like, okay, do you give back to the community? Because I know if you give back to the community, you're going to do the right thing for the community, and people will come and support you. Like, you're grounded here. Right. And how's your attitude? Because I can't afford to be around you financially or spiritually if you can't find the joy in it. Yeah. Because it's not going to get any easier for a while. So, those were the two primary things. And then it was like, because I was like, okay, I'm willing to, have you come here and help support you, and you help support me. And let's see if we can build a really different kind of real estate company. So it started there 10 years ago, and, it was me, and then it was another, and then it was another. And now, we're up to about 130 brokers.
That's amazing.
I know our office has the number 1 market share in the city of Portland. It's amazing. I have, on average, my agents are far outperform other brokers. And I really think it comes back to, these are leaders who find joy through service. Yeah. And they're the type of brokers who have, really sustainable businesses where people, repeat clientele. They're not threatened by, all the tech that's getting into the real estate field. Like, they know that the care that they give to their clients and their community is not going to be replaced. So, they would just really keep focused and do a great job.
Well, my husband's in real estate, so I know that buying a home and selling a home can be really scary. Yeah. And so I would agree that is, as a consumer, I understand there's the business side of it, right? What is your competitors doing? But the consumer side of it, they just want a really nice person who's going to be honest and care for them and make sure that their house is selling correctly, or that they're buying a house correctly. That's really all that they want to know, right? Right. I mean, the other tools are good, I'm sure, for business, but from a consumer standpoint, they just want an honest face.
Right. I mean, you want to make sure that, someone's really watching out for you personally. You're going to wind up in the right community for you and your family, and that your bottom line is being taken care of really closely too. And, Yeah. And I think that that's something I'm just so proud of Living Room. And we've won a lot of awards throughout our 10 years. And one of those was the Oregon Ethics in Business Award. I was just so proud of that because it's like, wow, the fact that real estate and ethics are coming together.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Is like something that, for a business, I think says just says a lot about the caliber of our agents and how they've been giving back to their community and how they're watching out for people here.
Yeah. That's so cool.
And that you can do that and still perform, be profitable and be highest producing. And that it's not that horrible, like shark, mentality of top salespeople and they're just gunning for it. It's like, actually, no, these top salespeople have been doing it because they're really taking care of the people in their community.
Yeah, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. So your girls are older now.
Yeah.
They're
10 and 12.
10 and 12.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do you do it? You own this company that's obviously growing and continuously taking up more of your time.
Yeah.
And then you have these girls that are in this really influential age.
Yeah.
Where they probably need their mom.
Yeah.
So how do you balance all that?
They do. Again, the balance is like a tricky word, but I don't know. There a couple things kind of came to my mind when you asked that question. One of them, my background is in music and art, and so I have just lived the life of like a hustler, like where you are just like putting things together creatively and making it work. Mm-hmm. And I would still say I'm probably living my life pretty artistically. I'm putting together a lot of things and we're making it work. Mm-hmm. And something about my girls is that they're both really independent. And so they help. I mean, this morning, I'm on a plane coming back from San Francisco and my daughters are here and they've got busy schedules. They're both competitive synchronized swimmers. They both play music. And, and Tula calls me and she's like, okay, here's my bus time. And here's what I'd like to do this afternoon to try to get to practice. And like, she comes to me already fully organized. And I realize, part of me, there's a little part of me that's like, oh, I wish I could coddle her. I wish she didn't have to do these things. But then another part of me is like, well, she's like an independent, empowered 12-year-old. Like she's going to go into her teenage years knowing like, I got this, I can get around town and I know how to take care of myself and I know where I need to be. So I would say, they definitely help that they've, and we spend a lot of time together. They're really interested in seeing, I heard something once that kids, it's not the amount of time that you spend, but that they see you really happy in your own life, you know, for working parents. And I think that that's true. They see that they have this mom who's like, engaged in her community, that they've gotten really amazing opportunities through being able to, come with me to work. And I see them emulate some of those things. We write a newsletter for work, and the girls over the summer, 3 summers ago, started their own newsletter for the neighborhood. And
that's
they were
so cool.
Yeah, and they were like going out, and then the feedback that they got from neighbors were, we were literally had neighbors showing up at our front door crying, just like, this was so amazing, or I used to do this thing with my sister, or dropping off money so they could pay for toner, and they had my younger daughter, she has an advice column called Spaghetti Animal. And you can write into Spaghetti Animal with your questions about your pet. And so she had like neighborhood dogs writing her emails. And
oh my gosh, that is so cute.
It was really cool. So there's times I think as a mom you feel guilty because it's just like, oh, that you're like, oh, would I be the perfect mom if I was at home baking cookies?
Yeah, sure.
Or am I their perfect mom because they're, they're writing newsletters, they're independent.
Yeah.
The ceiling for them is pretty high on what they think that they can accomplish. And I've always just put them first too. Like I designed a company around, being able to breastfeed them and have them there in the office. Really we come back to that fundamental thing. And then, that they could come in after school, or that they're always, the families of living room employees, they know that they're always invited inside of the space. And I am a team builder. So that is something also I've always been really, really good about, delegating and handing things off and building team, because I don't want to do it. I don't need to do it all. Like what did Brené Brown say? She has a great quote about like being like busy is not a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And I really take that to heart, because it's like, I have someone that today when you came to our house for this interview, I have a woman that I hire that my kids don't need nannying anymore, but we sure need help with meals, and having someone just really realize like, okay, this piece off my plate would just help tremendously.
Yeah.
Or I have an executive assistant, and she knows like part of her role was picking up, Siri, getting her ready for school pictures while I'm traveling. Like that's just how it is to support an entrepreneur mom. And for me not to feel shame or embarrassed or judge myself for needing a lot of help outside of what might look like corporate activity. Because it's like, I'm the leader, I need a lot of support, and that looks like this for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've had secretaries buying wives their anniversary presents for years, right?
Yeah.
So what is the equivalent of that for a mom leader? And a lot of times that's like grocery shopping and making sure the kids like got from point A to point B, or brought them into the office. So,
well, and I think it's so hard because there just aren't a lot of examples of that. And a lot of times businesses that you do see female leaders, maybe not so much female CEOs, but female leaders, oftentimes they're up against other men. And so their goal isn't to say, I need all this help. Maybe they do that more silently. They do have help, or they do have all these things, but they don't wear that as a badge of honor, which they should, because they're figuring out what works for their family, because the men just aren't having to do that. They're not having to pick up that role. So I think it's really good that you shared that, because sometimes even for me, like when I hear you talk about how you do all this stuff, I'm kind of like, but really, how do you do it? And so by sharing some of those pieces, it's just so important to be like, this is just what works for my family. Like your family, it might look different. Maybe your husband's a chef, so he does all the cooking, or maybe you don't have a husband, and so you do all the cooking because you like to, but you get help in other ways. Like, I think that it's just so important as moms, even if it is that you're a stay-at-home mom, or you're a working mom, or you're a mompreneur, or whatever it is, that you just figure out what works for your family. Yeah. Because it's so important for moms in any of those roles to get their own time. Yes. And to not feel like they have to do it all.
No, I know. I think that I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but the one thing, this came up actually in a business meeting that I was in. We were doing kind of a vulnerability share with a group of leaders. And it was, if you could go back and do something over in your life, what would it be? And actually, the thing that came up for me was, I wish I would have asked for more help when the kids were smaller. I remember going over to a friend's house, and we went for a walk on a Saturday, and she had a nanny over for the Saturday. And I was like, well, neither you or your husband have to work today. Why is she here? She's like, so we can do things that we want to do today. I was like, oh, it hadn't occurred to me, like there's this, I don't know where that came from, but like an idea in my head that like, well, if I'm not at work, then I have to be taking care of the kids. But it's not always the thing for any of us. Yeah. There are plenty of times if mom's burnt out, kids would rather be with their favorite babysitter. Yeah. Having fun or going to the pool or doing whatever. And then mom gets some downtime. And then when we're back together, I'm really present in there. And so I think allowing for ourselves to ask for help and also kind of just evaluating, like, do I want to afford the bigger house or the things or whatever it is, or keep life simpler and bring in more help? Yeah. I think the experience, and I've been really thinking a lot lately and talking about this with some of my girlfriends, is this idea of masculinity versus femininity. And that doesn't really have to do with gender, but I think that I'm a pretty masculine person. I'm very results oriented. I'm very, very driven. And when you do something in like the masculine, it's for the effect, it's for the results. And when you do things for the feminine, it's the experience. And as I've gotten older and as I'm spending time with these beautiful women and as they're developing, I'm realizing the experience is more important than the results. I think maybe I had things to prove to myself, and I have definitely achieved a level of success that I could not have dreamed of as a kid. And now I think it's like, okay, all right, you climb that mountain, but like what what about how does it feel? What's the experience like? And I heard a TED Talk where one was talking about, if you drink a cup of coffee for the results, that's the masculine way of drinking it. But if you drink a cup of coffee because you enjoy the ritual and the flavor, that's the feminine way of drinking it. And so I'm trying to bring in even just some more feminine into my life. Like, how can the experience of this be better? And I think it's the reason that really my company is as successful as it is too, is because I did bring a lot more feminine into the real estate brokerage, is that people were like, oh, this is not only does someone care about the results that I generate, that I'm a top performer, but that also they're building systems so that the experience of working in real estate is better for myself, is better for my children, and that I'm being acknowledged for more than just my sales production, but also like what I'm giving back to the community and how I can show up. And that, we definitely lean far out into our meetings, into vulnerability and sharing and caring for each other. And I think a lot of that, that's why, I just think that's why you're seeing a lot more, as more women get involved into the business world, that we're seeing like more businesses where people, the experience of working is becoming a lot more important.
Well, and it is like we're all just humans.
Yeah.
And we go through daily experiences, whether it be happy, sad, good, but whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so having a place at work where you can feel all those feelings and it's okay.
Yeah.
I think is important, man or woman, like aside, right?
Yep.
It's just that those feelings are there.
Yep.
And you're going to have them. I used to work for a company that was, I think all companies are pretty male oriented.
Yeah.
But I totally worked in a man's world. And my feedback I always got as a leader, as an individual contributor, all these things, is that I was too emotionally connected to people, that I became like people's friends too fast. And I even had a female mentor one time ask me if I wanted to be known as bubbly or if I wanted to be known as the office bitch. And I was like, well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
what kind of choice is that?
Well, is bubbly bad? Because people call me that a lot, and I don't want to be called the other word. And I remember these moments very vividly in my mind where I just constantly could not meet these expectations of, I can't not be human.
Right.
I can't just not wear my emotions on my sleeve. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be rude to earn a place at the table. Like that's just not how I work. And I always felt so discouraged. And it's been so nice doing something for myself now where I can be like, okay, if I get emotional, like it's my emotion, I can feel it. And there's no one around me telling me I can't be friends with somebody or I can't have an emotion about. It's just so crazy what we say to people, and not just women, but just people who have these emotions, right? We just try to like stuff them and say like, you got to separate business and personal. And I'm kind of like, but I'm not separated from that.
No. And
like I am a person and I am in business. Like why do those have to be separated?
They don't. And I think all the research shows like the more passionate a leader is and the more connected they are to their personal why, the more people want to follow them, the more successful they'll be. And so I think we're shifting, and that's just being that it's evolving, but I think there's still so many messages that we get, both men and women, that like somehow to be caring or emotional or is somehow at odds with results. Yeah. Where I really find that to be the opposite. I mean, I think my company is living proof that it's the opposite. It's like, no, actually, we're going to have a company based on taking care of people. Yeah. And that's going to get the results we want. We'll focus on the experience, and then we'll just trust the results will come rather than focusing on the results. And then afterwards, trying to backfill in an experience. It's one of the things I'm super proud of our company is that is that the majority of all of our managers are women of color. To attract a diverse workforce, to attract women into the workplace, you're just going to have to think, attract top talent. You're going to have to think differently. It's not the same old rules, but I think that, we're seeing so many companies trying to diversify, trying to attract more female leadership. And it's like, well, you can't just plug people into an existing system that's really not working. It's not working for the men.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not going to work for these incredible empowered women that are going to call bullshit on on
for
these
sure
systems. It's like, no, I know how to do it. I trust myself, and I'm going to do it my way. And that's not how it looks.
Yeah.
So
I am so excited to live in this shift.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's so cool. And I'm grateful that I got to work in an establishment before the shift so that I can really appreciate all the changes that are happening, right? And understand the work that it takes even for somebody like you to start a realty company like that. I mean, that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And, it's interesting because I don't think I was a person that was I had really ever kind of woken up to sexism. My mom was very much an activist in the 70s and 80s. And, and I just kind of thought, oh, that's my mom's fight. That was my mom's generation's fight. And when I started, I didn't really run into a lot of sexism in my career as a realtor. But when I started the real estate brokerage, I immediately noticed things that I just had not been aware of before. I mean, one of the things I got constantly for the first 3 years of the company is, oh, Living Room Realty, I've heard of them. Now, that company's just for women, right? We had like half of the roster were men. And I was like, why do they keep saying that? And it didn't dawn on me for a few years later. Like, oh, because we're all used to seeing women in real estate. But no one in this city is used to seeing a woman run the brokerage. That's different. If I look at all the other brokers, oh, okay, I'm the only female face. Now I get that. Or every time I walked into a room I owned some commercial property with a partner, and I'd walk in the room with him, and people would always assume he owned Living Room Realty. Oh, we have 2 investors coming. One of them is owner of Living Room Realty. Well, of course, boom, they're going to assume it's the man. And it just, after a while, it's exhausting. Or being asked, and we'd go look at when we were expanding. We have 6 offices now.
Wow.
And
that's really cool.
We were going to look to expand, working with commercial brokerages and the teams and the developers. I'd come up, big group of men, and I got questions like, well, who are we waiting for? Oh, it's me. Or you want to go home and talk to your husband about it? I'm not married. Like these things like this like, I guess you call them, some people call them microaggressions or whatever it is. It's after a while, you just really notice, just like, man, things quite have not changed as much as, I was aware of.
Yeah.
And it's really reminded me to use my voice too and speak up and help support other women, because, I really was blind to it before starting in here. And you see how much that women really have to overcome to be taken seriously in, in some circles. And I want to do everything I can to change that narrative.
Yeah. Yes, when you paint those pictures, I totally can see it. I think it happens so often. And I even see it like when my husband and I go grocery shopping, or like when we pick out furniture, they're always like kind of making eye contact with him when it comes to the sale, but they're talking to me when it comes to like the style and all this. And that's fine. Like in the moment, I'm like, oh, whatever. I am concerned about the color and the size and all these things that I want to make sure fit within our space. But then when it comes down to like pulling out the credit card, like they kind of just expect him to pull it out.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, well, hold on. I'll grab mine.
Yeah.
It's the same, but sure. For just this whole thing, I'll just be like, no, you keep your wallet in your pocket, baby. I got this.
It's got this.
Look
at me. I have boobs and I can pay. It's this neat thing I do.
It's weird. I like to have a stylish house, and I have an opinion about finances. Yeah. Is that okay?
I know.
Is that all right?
Having been single for so many years, I feel like that is another, like, the world just doesn't know what to do with you. And I was dating a guy for a while who was a really talented chef, and he answered the door, and I had to a business consultant that I was working with at the time, and he went back into the kitchen. He was working on a project, and the consultant pulled me aside, and he was like, "So, what's it like dating a guy who doesn't make as much money as you?" I almost died. I was like, I don't know. What's it like for your wife? Like, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, your expectation for me of like, who even I get to date, who I get to love, who I get to be, what I get to wear, what I have to, it's just like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's really exhausting. And it's got to be exhausting for the men too, because we are all losing in these stereotypes.
Right. I know. We're all just like the subject of like this thing or this bubble that society has put on us, like they always say like, oh, they say, and I'm like, I'd really like to meet they or them, whoever it is that's like putting us into these like categories and boxes, because they have it all wrong.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about this. But my husband and I, when we had our little one, we went through a shift where I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to go back to work, and he was going back to work, and then I ultimately decided to stay home. And then we kind of have a weird story, but he ended up quitting too. And when it was like time to like, okay, well, what are we going to do with our lives? It was weird how much pressure he felt like he had to go back to work. And I thought in my mind, like, it doesn't have to be like that. Yeah. It's just that's what you see the majority of.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way. There are lots of parents that do it differently and lots of different examples. We just don't see those as much.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the time it's a stay-at-home mom, and that's just what works for the family.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization, it's a really amazing organization, but they're businesses that have scaled. I mean, only 4% of U.S. companies ever break the $1 million mark. And so you have to have $1 million revenues to join EO. So you're with a peer group of pretty successful business people. And when I first joined years ago, we had about 10% women. And I remember looking around the room, we got the women together, and everyone was divorced but one. And I think it is really hard I think it's an added stress to relationships. Not that already entrepreneurialism isn't a huge stress for a marriage. But you add on the added stress of being a woman business leader and entrepreneur. And I think that it's hard for both couples. I think it's really hard to stand firm and like, no, this works for us. And this is, and you want to support each other to realize our dreams. I think there's a lot of judgment on both sides. Mm-hmm. And honestly too, I can't tell you the amount of times, like I'm over this now, but the first few years just feeling like, it's so not fair. Like a lot of the men had stay-at-home wives that helped. And I was like, I want a wife.
Yeah.
I want someone that does that. I want someone that does my, that helps with, the calendar and play dates and there's having the home operating smoothly. And, as I'm out here trying to do some like major things in the area of business, and there's not a lot left over sometimes after that. And so, I think that, to your point, coming back to like figuring out what works for you as a mom, and what works for you and your family, because you need support. And I think, men have been much more comfortable for longer, like getting that partner that's just can be that 100% support. And there's so much respect for that position as a woman. And I think men have had to fight a little harder for the same respect and status as stay-at-home dads to support the women in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been the biggest challenge of being a single mom and running a business?
Biggest challenge. Good question. I don't know. There's parts of it that are easier. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to negotiate with, like someone else. Like, we're doing this. I was like, we're doing it. But I think it's. I don't know. I mean, I think that there could be. I'm a community builder. Like that is just you. I just think that that's what I was put on earth to do, is build community and bring people together and build community. And so I've been really good about, I would say, like what can be hard to single mom, loneliness, support, that type of thing. But I've worked really hard to build friends around me and relationships where I could get support. And I've been lucky with success in business that I've been successful enough I could also hire support when I've needed it, and I've definitely utilized that. And I think, I really think it's more just about the attitudes. I'd say the thing that's been hardest for me is, and it's something that I've gotten since I was a teenager, that I've kind of had to, work through with the therapist, work through myself, is this message that I've gotten that is like, who, gosh, who will be your partner? You're too much. You're so much. Like this message that like somehow who I am is outside the scope of normal human experience, or makes me somewhat unlovable or difficult to love because I'm an ambitious woman, where I wish the opposite message had been given to me. It was just like, this is what makes you lovable, because it's who you are, and it's amazing, and it's a light and it's special. And I know that, in on most of my good days and in good feelings, like I know that, but that message has creeped in a few times, and I still get that. Just a few weeks ago, I have a new partner in my life and love in my life, and and someone was saying, well, have you guys, have you really explored like if what you do and who you are in the community is going to make him feel threatened? And it's just like, oh wow, it's that message again. Is who you are just going to be too much for this person to like handle or love? Yeah. So I mean, I think it really doesn't have to do much with the kids. Is more personal on myself, and it has about being a single, I think, successful female. But
I also think when you enter into being a single mom, I do think that there's probably some of that self-talk that happens no matter what type of like realm you're in the business world or wherever. My sister's a single mom, and I do know that's been a big challenge, just with like, not so much like, I guess she doesn't really open up too much about that part, but you could definitely tell there was like parts of her that was like, okay, now I have a kid. Yeah. And now I have to go back into this like dating world. So there was a lot of that she kind of carried in, which I think in turn, what made her so much more awesome was that now she was a rock star mom to this girl. And there was like even more things to love about her. Yeah. Like, she's very lovable, but now she's like a really good mom to this really sweet girl. And that's also very attracting and lovable to somebody too, right? Something that she thought was going to be a big burden. Absolutely. Has now turned into a big asset. So I just think that could be really hard. Yeah. Because now you're like walking back into these uncharted territories, because you're back in the dating world, but you're a mom, and what does that look like? And
I mean, most of it is like the fear of just stories we're telling ourselves. Because I know that for me, dating, the thing that will attract men to me is that what an amazing mom I am. And I know so many men that, especially if they have children, that a lot of them are seeking women that already know how to be moms, and that, like they don't want to go back, like, and none of the men I've actually dated have had kids, but I've been surprised at like what a bonus that they feel like it is that I have kids. But the story in my head, I think is, oh, this is a sign of my failure. I had a failed marriage, or this could be a strike against me, or there's like these things, but it's like, oh, that's actually quite been the opposite experience. Yeah. But we're just so often just so hard on ourselves.
We are. I've been working so hard on like positive talk, like just being friends with the person inside my head. Yes. Like I just can't. That's funny, the story thing. I learned that from Brene Brown's episode on Netflix.
The story I'm telling myself is.
That's beautiful. I literally take that all the time, even when I'm talking to my own self. Like I'm always like, okay, the story you're telling yourself is this. That's not the story you want to be telling yourself, or that you want your son to hear, or your husband. Like, you got to get out of your own way with that. It's so hard.
I know this. Like I was saying, my brain is a cul-de-sac in crazy town. You're just driving around there, and it's like, get out. Like, nobody else is even there. I will say, a game changer for me with kids in a busy life and career has been transcendental meditation. I discovered that about 5 years ago. And immediately, because I wake up in the morning and I am ready to go. I am thinking about, we're thinking about meetings. I think I'm an investor in real estate. I've got a lot of things going on, boards, the business, the kids, the whole thing. And I'd get, fired up. And now to take 20 minutes and just like ground. I mean, immediately my children started commenting of just like how much easier I was to be around in the morning,
Wow.
just like how much more present and how much more patient and that 20 minutes in the morning, and I do my best thinking then, and like things come up, the priority list, it's like, and then stuff can fall away. And then 20 minutes in the afternoon, I tried to do that before transition time, before, we're coming back in for dinner. And then again, I'm like mom again, like I can leave things behind. And I religiously always get that 20 minutes in the morning, the afternoons, not as much, but all that I can. And it's just really made a huge difference.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
I even if it's not meditation, I think just having like that calm, quiet time, right? If it doesn't have to be super formal, if you're like, I don't want to look into meditation or whatever it is, but I do think getting that time to yourself just to like reset is so important because it helps you with like that negative talk, right? You can sit there and be like, okay, I know I wasn't patient yesterday, but we're going to work on that. Or, I'm going to do this now. Okay, today I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to be intentional here. So you can start to really plan out what's going to happen before you actually open up your door and
and it just
start
starts
life
coming at you because it comes at you fast. So I'm like, okay, this is the space that I have to have and that I need.
Well, my son's a 2, still a toddler, so he's my alarm clock.
Yep.
So he just comes at me. I don't really have a lot of time, but I do know that I need to take that time in the morning because I know the days I do get to when he sleeps in magically, it is just like a world of difference.
Changer.
Yeah, game changer.
And that's another thing I wish I had known. Going back, if I have more kids now, I'll have such a different perspective because whatever stage my kids in when they were little, I thought it'd kind of be like that forever. And now having gone through, 12 years of like, oh, they all go by so fast. And I know people say that, but there were so many times while they were growing up that I was like, oh my gosh, it's this like, how am I ever going to, how will I survive? How will I do this? How do people get to 18? It's like, oh, because it's like this now. It'll be different in a couple months or in a year, and then it's different again. And it's so evolving.
Yeah, it is. Each day is different, I feel like. And that's why I think it's so important that we do have positive talk as moms because each day something new is thrown at us, whether it be a new season in their life, whether it be something in like outside world that we don't really have a lot of control over. And no one's given us a handbook. No one wakes you up in the morning and they're like, this is what your day is going to look like. So why don't you think about how you're going to respond to those actions, okay? And then you can go deal with them. It's like, no, they just happen. So human response, right? Maybe you're frustrated, you didn't have a lot of patience, or you're scared, or whatever it is. And that's okay. Just be kind to yourself and be like, okay, I experienced that for the first time today. Let me just rethink how I would do that next time.
Yeah, I think I talk about this a lot. So my background, what helped set me up, I think, for business and for entrepreneurship was that I was in an all girls punk band, and I did that right after college. I started a punk band. 3 of my girlfriends. We traveled all over the country. We played for a few years, and I wound up playing in bands, probably for a total of 5 years after that. And that was the first awakening and the first experience I had at having a place where it was safe to fail. And I think as moms, we have to realize, like, you're right, we don't get a handbook. And so we're not experts. We're going to fail every day. Like, we're going just to fail. And I think that the thing that I'm trying to give my daughters now is that we do a thing at dinner time. Every night at dinner, I ask them 3 questions. How are you kind today? How did you fail today? And how are you brave today? And a lot of times they're all wrapped up into one thing, especially being brave and failing. And I just want them to know that I expect that they're going to fail every day. And that's just a part of it. And let's look for where you failed and let's talk about it, right? Because if a failure is only a failure if you didn't learn anything from it anyway. Right. And and that's like entrepreneurship. I mean, that's what they say, fail fast and, small teams, get in there so you can try things and then, fail and move on. But we're not taught that at school. And as little girls, I think we get this messaging of like, be quiet, raise your hand, know the answer, don't look dumb, all these things.
Yeah.
And so for me, going into this girls' punk band, and the beautiful part about punk rock music is you don't have to know how to play your instrument. You just have to be willing to get up on stage and scream it, scream something you believe in.
Yeah.
And none of us really knew how to play our instruments. I'd played French horn and trumpet growing up, so I think I had the most music experience out of anyone. But yeah, I wasn't even playing much of an instrument. I kind of wailed on the guitar sometimes and was the front person. And my girlfriend, who had a beautiful singing voice and grew up singing in church, played guitar, and Sally played bass, and Kate was on drums, and people loved us because we were terrible.
Yeah.
Like, it was so authentic and real, and we were having fun. And they, and at the time it was like there were really no women playing that type of music, and so we got invited to be on stage with all sorts of amazing bands, traveled all over the country. And, it's this arena where like I would try something or I'd fall off the stage and people catch you or they cheer louder. Like, it's like the one arena where like, oh my gosh, you're a hot mess. That's even better. And it just felt like so much freedom. And I feel like now there's just all these lessons that I pull forward from that experience to running the business or to, stage diving, be like, oh, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but move on. I don't know that I would have been able to start the business and kind of have the compassion and the energy and all the rest of it that I have for myself and for the business had I not had that experience of it being really safe.
Yeah.
To just make a hot mess of things sometimes and keep rocking.
It's hard to find that place.
Yeah.
To be safe. Even like in moms groups that I've joined.
Yeah.
You just know there are some moms who feel maybe a little bit more safe than others.
Yeah.
And that's a hard place. But I definitely agree that when you find a group like that, you got to stick with them.
Yeah.
And learn what you can.
And I think for all of us to think about, like, how are we going to foster that with our own kids? I mean, for me, I've been volunteering with an organization here in town called the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls. And it's about empowering women. It's an empowerment camp, really, self-esteem camp, but they hide it with rock and roll. Like, girls don't know that's what they're getting, but that's what they're getting.
Yeah.
Or they know what they're getting. But, and it's like these arenas, not every girl's an athlete. 'Cause I think sports is another place that you get it. And they have all of these studies that show 97% of women who wind up in C-suite executive positions in companies play team sports. Like, that has more to say with your success rate than anything else. Is that, can you work in a team? Were you used to supporting people? Did you go for things and miss it, right? It's failure. That's teamwork. But not every girl, is an athlete. So what about the iconoclast? And it's like, Is it rock and roll? Is it, how do we create safe places for our kids to fail? I'm the only parent in my neighborhood. You're in my neighborhood today. You were saying how beautiful it is. It's beautiful. It's safe. It's gorgeous. I'm the only parent in the entire neighborhood that lets their kid walk to the school bus stop alone. I mean, we have to start letting the kids fail, be independent, try some things, walk to the school bus by themselves.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's so hard because we as women, I don't know if you ever heard of Brave, Not Perfect. The Girls Who Code, started by Reshma.
Yeah.
She wrote a book called Brave, Not Perfect. She did a really famous TED Talk that I watched and fell in love with her. But, that's just like how we are taught from the very beginning is like, we have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And if we step out of that, it's like your worth has now gone down.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so hard because it's like, how do you break that cycle?
Yeah.
When it's just ingrained in you, like she has a podcast now and I listened to her talk to these entrepreneurs or, different types of people that are moms and how they talk to their girls and different things that they say. And when they describe what they do, I'm thinking in my mind, like, I would do that. And I wouldn't even notice that I was doing it. Right. And sometimes I even do it with my son. And so I'm like, I gotta be careful with him too. But it's just like, where do you draw the line when it's like running through your blood?
Oh,
And
yeah.
you can't like shut it off.
We're so conditioned. One of the things that Rock and Roll Camp for Girls taught me was that we never talk about people's appearances. That's actually really hard. We, as women, we have been socialized. You look great today.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so I remember I came into a Rock Camp board meeting and I'd cut off all my hair. And one of the women was like, oh, your decision-making process that led you to cut off your hair, you're brilliant. And I was like, that felt a whole lot better than like, oh, your haircut's cute.
Yeah.
You know? And it was like, oh, she complimented like how I came to the decision. Like, you know, you really had to challenge each other though, because, you know, how often do people do that to girls too? Oh, you're so sweet. And then, you know, and then with the brother or whatever, like, oh, you're going to be a football star one day?
Yeah.
You know, it's not about the appearances. So being really careful about the messages that we give girls and yeah, perfectionism. Oh, I had one of the most powerful experiences of my life. I actually hosted a coach in our development coach in our office, and she asked everybody in the at the company to write 3 things that were going well and 3 things that weren't. 3 things we'd like to work on. 3 things that we were proud of. And everyone starts writing immediately, and I'm like, wow, gosh, I've got my 3 things I want to work on, but like I don't know, like I cannot think of 3 things, you know, and so that are going well. And so finally everyone gets done and she's about to start the talk again. And I raised my hand and I was like, I was having a really hard time. Can you help me? And she just with like all the love and compassion in her heart was like, are you the owner? You're who's hosting us today, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, so as a really ambitious entrepreneur type of personality, when you heard 3 things that were going well, did you hear 3 things that were perfect? And I was like, oh my God, I did. Like that stopped me. Like I interpreted, of course I had 3 things going well, right? Like we're in the office that I own. I just bought the commercial building we're sitting in. That's going well. This business is going well. The fact that we had all these people show up to our event was going well. And she really like helped illuminate for me, like, what's the experience of being in my own body? Like oftentimes, like, what am I hearing? That's not what she was saying.
Yeah.
How liberating might it be to feel like the rest of the people that immediately could be like, yeah, 3 things going well. You know, I'm stuck on it. And also, what is the experience of other people? And this is what I took most to heart. What is the experience of other people around me? That here I am embodying all this success and I'm stuck on what's going well. How are people going to feel around me if I hold myself to that level? Are they going to feel like what's going well is good enough if it's not good enough for me? And so I feel like when we ask, like, what can we do about the perfectionism or what can we do, you know, it's like part of it, I've taken it on is like, I can be kinder to others sometimes than to myself, and to remember, like, how can I empower others to know that it's okay not to be perfect? Well, I can be super vulnerable right now, and I can tell people how I messed up. I can tell people I'm scared. I can tell people, you know, I can like share the high joys too, and let people know, hey, it's okay to take time off and do things for yourself. And, you know, and all of these things that, like, if I can live really honestly and full of joy and full of vulnerability, like, that's going to empower the people around me to know that, like, they've got it too. So I felt like for me, I had to like turn it inside out and make it like a radical declaration for others.
Yeah.
You know? I was like, I'm going to allow myself this. I'm going to allow myself grace, because in doing that, I can free that up for others.
Yeah. I think it's so important for leaders to do that, but especially female leaders, for everything you just said.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a risky place for us to be, to say things that make us nervous or scared, or, you know, share that vulnerable side, because that's when we are looked upon as weak.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, you're not even just doing the like brave, not perfect. You're doing the like, no, vulnerability is actually a strength. Like, look where this will take me.
Yeah.
Watch what I'll do with this, because I can empower you. I can change your mind. I can inspire you to keep going just because I can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough for all your time.
Oh, thank you.
I have one last question.
Okay.
As being a punk star I was going to say a rock star, but then you said punk bands. I feel like a punk star is like really what you are.
Dirty little punk rocker.
Stage diving, which sounds awesome, by the way. I'd like to see some footage of this.
I know. Oh, thank God it was before Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, no live videos happening.
Oh my gosh, no, yeah. Yeah.
Well, with all of that, being an entrepreneur, being a mom, running this successful business, continuing on, growing your success, single mom life, like what is your one piece of advice you would want moms to take away from this episode?
It's the thing I have to tell myself. It's that everything you have is enough. The people in front of you that have achieved where you're trying to go or doing what you think you want to do, they don't know anything that you don't. They don't have anything you don't. The only difference is that they just did it. And I've had to learn that lesson, and I'll learn that lesson again. I've learned it so many times again and again that I think that I get to where I wanted to be, and then I'm there at the table, and then I realize, oh, like no one here, there was no big secret. It was like my own limitations on myself that kept me away from this table, and like my feelings of having to earn it, or that there was, some secret, or they knew about somebody or had something, or, and over and over again, I realized, no, it was just like declaring that you were going to do it. And that's really, 90% of all of it.
Yeah. That's so good. Well, thank you so much. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate all your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for coming.
I know that there's a lot of mompreneurs out there.
Yes.
Who are going to love to hear this episode.
Oh, good.
So good. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you loved it. Please subscribe to this podcast so you can get the latest episodes, and tell us what you think about it in the reviews. And mamas, I love you.